last but not least, here on the first day of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, in with the Yukon Mining Alliance, we're happy to welcome in Alexco Resource President, Mr. Brad Thrall. Brad.
Hi, Trevor.
It's great to,
Can we shake hands?
To wrap the day with
Yeah, first time I've shaken hands in a couple of years.
Yeah, it's nice to be around people once again.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, come out of hibernation from Keno up there.
It's been a long winter.
It has been a long winter. This has been a conversation I've been really looking forward to have. Give us the latest here. It hasn't all been roses and flowers for Alexco the last greater part of the year. So let's talk about kind of what the company's up to now to really finally get into that production stage.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's been, I think, certainly a more challenging and longer startup period than we had originally, anticipated and envisioned. But having said that, I think we've made a lot of accomplishments in the last, 6, 8, 12 months. I mean, we've put over 1.2 kilometers of development, lateral development, the Birmingham mine. We have a 180-meter raise that we put to surface for primary ventilation, and then we've been, mining ore at Birmingham from the 1150 stope, long-hole mining methods. At Flame and Moth, we've got over 1 kilometer of development that we've completed to date, and we're mining ore on 2 different levels and 5 ore faces now. So, yeah, absolutely. The ramp up has been slower, but we certainly think, we've made a lot of progress recently. But no doubt that there have been some challenges on the COVID side. The first quarter of this year was particularly challenging on COVID impacts to our labor. At any one point, we had up to 25 to 30% of our workforce was in isolation. So when that goes on for a couple of months, that has a real impact. And certainly the supply chain disruptions. I mean, it's a real issue within the industry. Things that might have taken 1 to 2 weeks are taking 2 to 3 months now to secure. So that's had an impact on our development rates. When you're trying to put an underground mine into production, it's all about daily advance rates. Every day you need to advance so many meters, and if you're not advancing that many meters, you don't have the ore faces available, you don't have the flexibility. So that's what we're focused on right now is improving our advance rates. In the last couple of months, we've seen some real improvement, but we need to see that kind of continue. So we are leasing some additional equipment to try to get over that hump of equipment availability right now, and then certainly focusing on recruiting. Underground miners, underground mechanics are really the key positions. So, yeah. So having said that, yeah, it's been a challenge, but it's a great asset, and you know that. We have a pre-feasibility study that has 1.4 million tons of better than 800 grams per ton of silver. 87 million ounces now in indicated resource, another 30 million or so ounces in inferred resource. All of what I would call all of the capital construction is complete. So it's a great asset, and we just need to kind of get it over the finish line here.
I mean, we have been stricken in the last couple of years of things that are out of our control: COVID, inflation, supply chain issues. And you're not the only later stage developer, mine builder that's been hit with that type of impact. But let's talk about the things you can control. What are some things that maybe you've learned through all this that you're putting in place now to really maybe alleviate some of those pressures? We could be in an inflationary environment for quite some time. So what can Alexco do?
Yeah, well, let's talk inflation first. I mean, one of the good things, when you see the inflationary pressures, I think what you've seen generally in the industry, that's associated with many of the large capital construction projects. Our large capital spend is behind us. We've completed our mill expansion. We've put another grinding circuit in place. Again, we've got over 2 kilometers of all this development in place. We've expanded our camp facility. So all that big heavy lifting on the infrastructure side is done and behind us. About 55 to 60% of all of our costs at Keno Hill are associated with labor, transportation, and camp. Then beyond that, you have fuel and reagents and some of those types of things. So inflation is absolutely real. but it doesn't actually have as much of a direct impact on our operating costs. So again, for us, it's all about development rates. We've learned a lot. You've asked, what have we done to improve things? And certainly, understanding the geology that's in front of us in our development phases. So we're doing a lot more infill drilling underground, geotechnical drilling, so that we can see ahead of us what those ground conditions are better, so that we can better anticipate poor ground and be more proactive and reactionary when it comes to ground conditions in front of us. So investing more on the equipment side, like I say, additional equipment, to increase that equipment availability. We've been in that 30 to 35% availability range. You really need to be 65 to 70%. So again, focusing on the technical side underground to understand the ground and making more investment on the equipment is what we think is going to continue to improve those advance rates.
Is there a silver lining in here to where the team's been able to get a much better understanding during this time through underground exploration of kind of extending the mine plan and de-risking a little bit more through that? Is that a silver lining here, or am I just being optimistic?
No. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, let's go back to Birmingham, for example. We've been mining on the 1150 level, so that was our first ore horizon. We first mined there in a single ore heading, cut and fill. We didn't do the fill step, but we did the cut, and now we're long hole mining retreating. So we're learning a lot on long hole, on dilution, how to control dilution, how to better drill it, how to better blast it, and that's going to pay big dividends in terms of when we get into more and more long hole in both of these mines. So we're absolutely learning a lot in these early days in terms of ground control, dilution control, and all of those things.
I want to ask you about labor, because it is obviously a big point here, and we talked about it with Ranch Pillay earlier about recruiting more labor up to the Yukon. Listen, we all know there's not enough miners in the world, and there's even fewer underground miners, right? Yep. So what is Alexco trying to do here? And you briefly mentioned it, maybe we can expand on it. What is Alexco doing to try to educate more individuals to consider underground mining?
Well, I've been, personally in Alexco have been, one of the founding, members of the Center for Northern Innovation in Mining. So this is a program associated with Yukon University, and it's a mine training center. And we've been very heavily committed to that over the years. And it's about training Yukon, people, underground miners, heavy-duty mechanics, geological technicians, environmental monitors, in all of those positions. I mean, it's not going to solve the challenges today, but it's really building, I think, a lot of that capacity. And you're right. I mean, trying to convince an 18, 19-year-old, that there's a career, in heavy diesel mechanics or being an underground miner, it doesn't sound glamorous, but it's a very lucrative field if you want to get into it. There's a lot of opportunity. It's very competitive right now. So we spend a lot of time on that on the training side, and then at Keno Hill, it's not all about what are you getting paid per hour. In this day and age, it's how's the internet at camp, how's the food, how's the camp facility. So it's important for us to stay very competitive in terms of our facilities and those types of things, and pay a competitive wage. So focus on training, focus on recruitment, and really do a good job on having a good work environment and that people want to stay at.
Let's look at the kind of looking forward here with Keno Hill, and Alexco's got to get to a point to where it's cash flowing. We thought we were there a couple times here in the last couple years. But what is it going to take? What needs to happen to get to that point to where that mine's turned on, you're producing cash flow, and your and Clint's dream comes true?
Yep. It's about opening up more ore levels and more ore faces so that we have the flexibility to have multiple faces of ore. So you're not relying on just one or two faces. And that means getting ahead on development. So, right now we have I don't know if I mentioned it. We have 4 to 5 phases of ore at Flame and Moth, and we have one single ore drive at Birmingham. A good rule of thumb is about a third of your phases are in ore, about a third of those of those ore levels are in secondary access, and another third are in a fill cycle. So if you want 4 or 5 ore phases producing ore, you really need a dozen or 15 phases of ore at different levels to be active at any one time. So that's where we need to be, and that's where we're trying to get to in terms of advancing our development rate, so we can get deeper into the mine faster than the ore is being produced behind us.
Mining's a tough business, ain't it?
It is a tough business.
But it can be very rewarding.
No, it's been a long journey at Keno Hill, but again, it's a great asset. We have feel like we have a real responsibility there. We have 195 employees at site. They have families, and they pay mortgages, and so there's obviously a lot of benefit to even a little company like Alexco and Keno Hill. I think provides a lot of benefit and opportunity across the north. So yeah, feel a big responsibility, and we're obviously going to get there.
Yeah, and you are positioned in such an incredibly endowed jurisdiction. I mean, not speaking of Yukon in general, but just Mayo. I mean, you've got Victoria up the road that's obviously doing well. Banyan just announced 4 million ounces. Keno Hill is, isn't it? It's definitely the highest grade silver in Canada, but it's up there in North America and the world.
Oh, it's in the top 2-3% of global silver deposits in terms of grade and size. Over 210 million ounces have come out of that district. We've discovered, between indicated and inferred, we've discovered 100 million ounces in the last 10 years. It's almost 50% of what's come out of Keno Hill we have now on the books. So again, the asset it's a great asset. You're right. The area in which we operate, the traditional territory of the First Nation of Notchonite Gun, they're great supporters. I think we have a great relationship with the First Nation. The Yukon. It's in the north, but it's a great place to be in terms of infrastructure, and the permitting regime is continuing to improve. I don't think we'd rather be anyplace else.
Brad, good to see you. Thanks for the update.
Good to see you, Trevor.
Yeah. All right, that's your update from Alexco Resources, trading on the TSX and the NYSE American with the symbol AXU. And that is a wrap here from the Yukon Mining Alliance Yukon Pavilion on day 1, Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. We'll be back tomorrow morning with some more interviews from throughout Yukon. Stay tuned.